Gelsinger, forced out after board lost confidence in turnaround plan.
So animal brains use something called spike neural networks.
How does it continue to operate? Is it collecting energy from its environment or...
Aloha and welcome to the Daily AI Show. Today is News Day and it's a Wednesday. So we're going to bring you all the greatest stories from around the world, whatever we find most interesting, what we think is most important to keep an eye on, and anything that's going to spark our interest so that we can have a great discussion. So thank you everybody for joining us today. All of our watchers and listeners. And today I'm joined by Brian, Beth, and Andy. And so to open it up, Brian had mentioned an Intel story, and I think that'd be a great one to knock it out of the park with. So Brian, what do you got?
Yeah, we mentioned this briefly yesterday, so I'd bring it at least back up on the show today since we do talk about the news. And that's that the Intel CEO Gelsinger forced out after board lost confidence in turnaround plan. So in diving into this topic a little bit more, and what seems to have happened is he resigned December 1st after he was in a board meeting, and they said basically he could retire or be removed, and he chose to resign. So they had lost confidence in him. He came in 2021. And it's not like the company was doing massively well in 2021 to begin with. He put in a costly and fast-moving 4-year turnaround plan. And the board basically was saying that during his tenure, they actually lost contracts. From what I can tell in this article, they've lost half of their stock value this year. And so Intel is just really struggling. And what it appears is the board just felt like they were not turning the ship fast enough. Not that there wasn't a plan put in place, but just that simply this particular CEO wasn't getting the job done fast enough in their eye. And so I think it's, look, we talked about this. We talked about, competitors like Nvidia. We talked yesterday about the nostalgia of the company Intel. And I think there's probably, we talked about this yesterday too, is like there's probably a longer conversation about this that maybe we can have on a different show. But just really interesting to see. It doesn't mean they're dead and gone. I think now they're putting it in the hands of temporarily who will be taking over. It says Chief Financial Officer David Zinsser and Senior Executive Michelle Johnston Hofhaus will serve as interim co-chief executive officers. And then it says here, what's their plan? The board has formed a search committee. But for Gelsinger's successor, Frank Gehry, independent chair of the board, stated that we know that we have much more work to do at the company and are committed to restoring investor confidence. And the other thing I'll bring up about this is this is definitely detrimental. Anytime you're going to have another change like this, it's not uncommon necessarily to see CEOs be churned through, especially in terms of crisis, in turnaround, new plans, boards losing confidence, so on and so forth. So it's like that. This is a unique story per se, but the reality is they obviously have lost enough confidence, and they know they're going to obviously probably take a hit for this until they can get somebody back in the seat, to take over and come up with whatever the new plan is and stuff. So, anytime a board does this, obviously they probably think, well, let's cut and run because we're going to slide more, but we'd rather slide more right now and come up with a new plan to try to get ahead of this and stuff. So just a really interesting story. Not much more to add there, but for anybody that remembers Intel as being sort of the darling of, chips and computers like we were talking about yesterday, and, terms like Pentium and things like that, we grew up with. It's just an interesting story, and be interesting to see what their turnaround plan is to be relevant with chips and AI and all the things that go along with that. So just a good starting point.
Well, it got me thinking too, is the AI focused talent pool is being, there's a grab there. Everyone's trying to get everybody. Oh, you're thinking of leaving? All right, well, come with us. Lots of headhunting going on. I don't know of anyone who's available, right? Isn't everybody either doing their own project or they're already working on something? Or do you think they're looking for another CEO who's maybe got more traditional experience, not just AI focused? Was their main reason for losing confidence the AI aspect? I think that's kind of what we were leaning towards, but
They said canceled contracts, unable to deliver promised goods, and made optimistic claims about prospective AI chip deals that exceeded Intel's own estimates. Uh, the company also struggled with post-pandemic collapse in the market for laptops and PCs, which sank Intel's gross margins and depressed its stock price. By the way, I'm getting this. I should source where I'm getting this from. This is from a Yahoo Finance article on there. There's several. There's New York Times articles about this. This kind of hit the news cycle for sure. But I'm reading this off of a Yahoo Finance one. So just where credit's due. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm with you, Jimmy. Like, who do you get to step into that role that has a clear understanding about what's needed for, the future of AI and stuff? Yeah. I'm not sure how large of a talent pool they can pull from for that.
Yeah, I think that this shift at the top is a result of Intel not really being on the mark when it came to this enormous explosion in chip demand that's focused on GPUs. They do have some AI processors and have a line for that, but I think they were just slow to see the strategic importance of shifting their innovation pipeline entirely to, meet the demand that's growing there. So you have a $3.5 trillion company, Nvidia now, that is, making the whole Intel Inside like an artifact of the past. Uh, Now, there are a number of other players who are, who would have been expected, just like Intel would be expected to be a major player in AI chips. AMD, Advanced Micro Devices, they do have, a better catch on the market demand than does Intel at this point. And there are many other startups that are offering credible alternatives to NVIDIA's chips. Importantly, and this, to sort of throw, salt in the wound of Intel, there's a big retailer that's going to be a major player in chips and displacing Intel, and that's Amazon, right? Amazon, of course, is not just the global retailer, but it is also Amazon Web Services, which is cloud-based data centers that operate with a full suite of software and so on. But they've been working on their own chips in order to reduce reliance on NVIDIA's pipeline. And they just announced that they have a collaboration with Anthropic, which does the Claude line of models, to provide compute centers for Anthropic and others. But with Anthropic basically saying we're going to run our models within this system using Trainium 2, which is an existing AI inference chip that Amazon designed, developed, and built. And they also have announced the coming availability of Trainium 3, which is a dramatic improvement over Trainium 2. So they're moving very swiftly down. They have an enormous war chest, obviously, because they're backed by Bezos and the money that he's accumulated not only with AWS, but with Amazon retail as well. So Amazon had a bunch of other announcements that I'm sure we'll talk about on this show, but chips are moving forward. Let me just mention that in addition to just the typical silicon chips that are being designed and developed by multiple players out there to try to, again, reduce reliance on NVIDIA, there are photonic chips now, in the making, which are, incredible. So MIT just released research this week that they've developed a chip that is entirely capable of running a deep neural network, all of the different linear and nonlinear processes with pure photonic operation. Now, they do actually have some electronics on the chip to translate what's happening in the photonic computing into what is delivered on the web, which is electronic, not photonic. But this one fact will put it into context for you. The optical device was able to complete key computations for machine learning classification in less than half a nanosecond, while achieving 92% accuracy. Well, nanosecond is totally different from milliseconds, right? And GPUs are operating in sort of the millisecond range. This photonic chip is a nanosecond operator.
One step closer to photonic life forms in holodecks. All right. But speaking about Amazon, you're right, Andy. Amazon's having their Reinvent 2024 event right now. And so all kinds of Amazon news is coming out. Number one, not only did they talk about the Anthropic announcement, but they're also doing a deal with Adobe. Now, they've already partnered with Adobe on certain levels or whatnot, but now that partnership is deepening, and they're going to be bringing their entire Adobe Experience platform, which is sort of like on their branding side of things, completely into AWS. This deals with customer engagement. This is all personalized branding campaigns and things like that. So in that media, that side of media, and so that's a huge step for both Adobe and Amazon or AWS specifically into making those large, we'll call them incumbent companies, bringing them into more of an AI space. So that could be a signal to Amazon's just general or overall plan to stay relevant in this space beyond, designing the next set of chips. The other thing they announced, and I think this is a big one for any enterprise wanting to use their own documentation, their own knowledge, and provide more customer service, is they announced automated reasoning checks. Right. And this is a system that was created to minimize or hopefully eliminate hallucinations. Right. Everyone knows about the famous story months ago about Air Canada and making the promise about here is the policy through their chatbot, and that did not go well for them. A lot of that just came from the hallucination response. So much like what Microsoft announced earlier, their correction software or their correction system, it's supposed to analyze any conversation and see what its potential for. Oh, this is probably a hallucination, and then it uses grounding, something that we've talked about in the past, something Google's implemented recently on their Vertex AI for the Google Cloud and things like that. The grounding is that base document, that source of truth that can always be drawn back from. So that's sort of broad strokes how that system works. And so that was the most interesting bit of news that I came across for the Amazon side. And then, of course, models, right? Beth, do you want to talk about the models that you found?
Yeah. So also in this context, likely in the context of their event that Jyunmi mentioned is happening right now. Last week we heard that Amazon had a code-named model named Olympus, codenamed Olympus, and this week they have dropped a series of models, which is their Nova models, and they are so there is a whole series, 4 text models with varying capabilities, Micro, Light, Pro, and Premier. So those kind of follow the Flash Mini kind of level, going up to a much bigger, likely more capable model. It says that it's competitive with the top frontier models on benchmarks. says it edges out rivals like GPT-4o, Mistral Large 2, and Llama 3 in testing. But of course, all of these tests are just a way to benchmark broadly, but you'll need to do your own testing to see whether it serves your needs better than the others. So, some other key things, the models feature support over 200 plus languages. I think that's fairly standard now, but something to keep in mind because language support is one of those things that that the models tend to cut off when they first release if they're not ready for the whole thing. I think one of the big stories about Amazon's announcements is that they are coming to play, right? It seemed like they were taking a back seat, just watching what was happening. Now with the chip announcement, with the further investment in Anthropic, obviously wanting that relationship, but now also announcing that they've been doing their own thing, so they have their own models. They're starting to join the race, I believe. In addition to the text models, there's a video model called REEL. It can generate 6-second videos now. That's shorter than state of the art. And it seems like people do they announce their video model and then people are like, yeah. So I haven't played with this, but they're getting into that as well. They have a speech to speech and an any to any modality models that they're planning to add to the Nova lineup in 2025. So this again is we're looking at 2025 to be true multimodality where the models were trained in the original mode as opposed to trained to convert everything to text, right? Describe the image that you're seeing, transcribe the audio, and then do it really quickly and send it back. So,
Do you
yeah.
know if has anyone actually played with the Amazon Bedrock, models before? Do they have a consumer-facing playground and/or chatbot that you can talk to these models?
I I don't think so. I think you have to be in the AWS console and integrated on to that level, which I think is what was one of the issues with Bedrock's launching, right?
Right.
It was not even really talked about in all the models. So you bet when you say, yes, this is we're still in it or we've joined the race. Absolutely. That's definitely the takeaway I get from this event because, like what Andy said, new chips, and big integrations with big companies, especially in the AI space with Anthropic, all of those new models. I'm always excited when there's a new video model because I get that feeling like we're almost there. Just need that one more step, and it'll be everything that I want. That kind of thing.
Well, and it's a super valid point, Andy, because we do talk a fair amount about Gemini. The reason we're talking about Gemini is because Google has aistudio.google.com, where we can enter a playground and play with Gemini for free. If any of us had to go through Google Cloud to find the place where we could play with Gemini, we would be talking way less about it because that's just nuts.
I think AWS cloud to get to
No.
no.
That's why
As an example, if you had to
Amazon, yeah,
Yeah.
Amazon has not given us a playground with a really simple URL that we can just play with their models. I believe you could do it if you went through the AWS, right, like cloud registration and getting in there and then being able to probably create your own playground environment within it. But that's like you must be this tall to ride this ride. And
Absolutely.
like, no, I don't. I can ride other people's rides. Like, I don't need to be that tall.
But it was a give there, right? Or they could get in there because their original model, Titan, which was set side by side with Anthropic's models, never really measured up.
Yeah.
But these new models, the Nova line, do. So now there's a different game. And I just hope that Amazon makes it possible for people to access a ChatGPT like application that's running the Nova models.
Yeah, just for that level of access. Okay,
I think we've seen too, just like the Grok is a good example of it, with what Ethan Mollick, I did it. I haven't done that in a while. Elon Musk. Wow. I haven't done that in a while. Elon Musk is who I'm talking about. And how quickly they stood up data centers, and how quickly a massive data center can get you from 0 to 75%. So I always wonder, as these new models stand up, it's not as I hate to say this, it's not as amazing to me anymore. I'm getting a little what's the word for it? Yeah, jaded or just like desensitized, I would say. Is what I think. A little desensitized to some of these models quickly being listed in like the top 6 or whatever. Who, by the way, this is an Ethan Mollick post from LinkedIn. He talked about it, and like then there were 6 talking about your frontier models. So I don't know. I mean, is that what Amazon did or didn't do or whatever? But when you're talking about billions of dollars in resources, if not more, hundreds of billions of dollars in resources, and you're talking about a company that has land and has the ability to expand quickly with something like Nvidia chips or the T1 or whatever they're called, the massive chips that they're running these off of. Like, I don't know, like, sure, shouldn't you be able to do that very, very quickly? I mean, relatively quickly. So I don't know. I hear these stories and I'm like, somebody stands it up, and then I would just go like, well, who created it? How much money did they have? And are we that impressed with this? Or is it just a matter of, first and foremost, size? And then, of course, we know all the other pieces and parts go with it that affect latency and efficiencies that go into it. It's certainly not just about how big of a data center you have, but we know that is a big part of this solution. So I don't know. That's just where my brain goes on it. Maybe I'm a little desensitized after 2 years of doing this. I'm like, so what? You have a front.
No, Brian, don't get down on yourself, because I'm the same way. I think it's just us adapting to the speed of the AI field, right? Normally we'd be desensitized in like a decade, but AI is so much faster. Only takes 2 years. So that just means they have to do better. We want to see newer, better stuff out.
Well, like we've all been there, right? Like how much, whether ChatGPT is moving fast enough, or why don't we have 5? And it's like, why don't you be happy with 4.0? Like, why don't you find all the cool ways you can work with 4.0 and keep, innovating on those? Speaking of ChatGPT, I do have 2 quick stories there if you're cool with Jimmy. The one is that at least there appears to be rumors of talking about ads on ChatGPT, but it's at least being discussed, is what it seems like. But this is a quote from Sam Altman, the CEO, who said it's basically a last resort. He said, "I'm not saying OpenAI would never consider ads, but I don't like them in general. And I think that an ads plus AI is sort of uniquely unsettling to me." So would they do it? I mean, look, they have costs that go in the billions of dollars. We just talked about that, like the cost to run and grow these platforms, and what it takes to actually be a frontier model like 4.0 is and stuff. So, never say never. I mean, obviously Perplexity's talked about doing what they're doing and finding unique ways to do ads. I think the general idea is like, they don't want to be Google. They don't want to have that sort of ad experience where it's top of the board. But again, money talks. And if OpenAI feels like they can keep the lights on and move towards AGI faster because of having ads, well, I don't care how unsettling it feels to Sam, the money is going to talk. So I say we see it in 2025. That's my prediction.
I really hope not. I would not like their product for OpenAI to be ad supported, because I just don't want that experience. It takes me out of it. I'll have to create or find ad blockers for that implementation, right? But it's funny. This they said they don't want to be like Google. Let's say you make your money through a company that you acquired, and that company makes money however it needs to make money, so that it can feed into the real project AGI. But yeah, that's probably not the ideal situation. But I just don't want
not here. And Carl's talked about this. Carl has mentioned, like, he's got concerns, as most people would, about ads, about like, well, where is the intention? Is it to simply put an ad, like they started it and they used to be like on the right side of a screen on, when you would used to way back when you would make websites and chop them up into thirds, and you would have your little scroll wheels on the right hand side and things like that for ads. Is that what we're talking about, where it's there but it's not really, it has nothing to do with the answer? Because what Carl has brought up, rightfully so, is like, okay, but I need to know, if you're going to do this, maybe it's a minor annoyance to me, but I need to know how it's impacting, or if it would impact the answer, because that's a big problem. If you think that there's enough money behind Nike that, Nike throws money in there and it's not super clear that that's a paid partnership, and you're getting answers now that are coming back and saying, whatever, the latest Nike.
I want a latest shoe. Oh, well, here's the first 3 are Nike, and then
Yeah, it's telling you they're superior too, right? They're actually telling you based on the marketing or whatever that's obviously a problem. So if they do decide to do it, obviously they're going to have to, like Perplexity, they're going to have to think really, really hard about how they approach it to not seriously, piss off their customers and make them go somewhere else. My other quick story on them real quick is ChatGPT search results for news are, quote, unpredictable and frequently inaccurate. So this was actually coming off of a, I guess, study, you would say, from Columbia's Tao Center for Digital Journalism researchers. And essentially, if we could just drill this down, they basically asked ChatGPT to look at 200 quotes from 20 publications. 40 of those quotes were taken from publishers who disallowed OpenAI's search crawler from accessing their site. Yet the chatbot confidently replied with false information anyway, rarely admitting it was unsure about the details it gave. In total, ChatGPT returned partially or entirely incorrect responses on 153 occasions, though it only acknowledged its inability to accurately respond to a query 7 times out of 200. Only in those 7 outputs did the chatbot use qualifying words and phrases like appears, it's possible, or might, or statements like, I couldn't locate the exact article. Now, ChatGPT actually responded to this and said this study represents an atypical test of our product. We've seen that before. They said misattribution is hard to address without the data and methodology that the Tao Center withheld. So, they're pushing back a little bit and saying, like, we don't know how you went about this test. You could have carefully curated to get this type of result and get, 150 out of 200 false responses. But it does, I was writing about this for a different newsletter for my work side of things. And it does bring up the point of, it's just a good reminder. I mean, like, it's good that you're seeing reports like this and people are testing this, that just because ChatGPT comes out with a, newer, better, faster search result, and you see citations on there, that you can't blindly trust the citations. That, again, you may get a citation, and oftentimes I've seen that the citation link does not work. It doesn't take you to the actual citation, which makes you think, is this fully made up? Is this a full hallucination? Is it just trying to appease me because it's predicting the next word, as Beth, you always talk about? And one way I fact check this, making this a very meta conversation, is we are literally having our news conversation right now. What I have started to do is I put the news in our newsletter about things that we thought were interesting, and they come directly from the show. So everything we're saying right now is going to make it into the newsletter in a shortened form with why it's relevant to our audience. But what I do now, just in the last maybe 4 weeks, I literally take the copied output of what the actual newsletter is going to say, and I throw it into Perplexity and I say, fact check this. And Perplexity has no problem taking 9 stories, breaking them down, and then giving you a list at the top and saying, I believe these are accurate based on these citations. I believe these are missing or partial misinformations based on this, this, and this. And then what I'll do is I'll go and say, okay, well, we talked about it on the show, so it came from somewhere. And then I'll do my due diligence to go either track it down, or I can give you an example. It had nothing to do with politics or Trump, but it just happened to be a Trump story from last week, I believe. And ultimately, I removed it from the newsletter because no matter what I did, I couldn't really find the exact way we talked about in the show. And in those cases, you don't want to perhaps mislead somebody. So I just removed it from the newsletter, right? So there's a good example of just trust but verify and doing the extra legwork, especially when you're talking about citations, because regardless of how this Columbia Toe Center of Digital Journalism went about it, or maybe they had an agenda to make ChatGPT look bad. We don't know, right? We don't know what how they went about it. But this happens. We know this happens, and it's just a good reminder to me, if nothing else.
Right. I mean, Google messed it up, right? Like, Google with all of the search information, with all of their history in doing search. So when you mix search with AI, it's not a simple thing. It's not just like you've added one ingredient. And I think that's really important too. The other thing that you're talking about is that there are competing initiatives, right? So you're being paid to bring people's attention to your message. You're also being paid to not bring people's attention to a paid message, right? Like you're trying to do both, and you can't do both. So you lean a little on one or the other.
Mm. Yeah, I agree with you. It's a hard problem to solve where that temperature actually comes into it, and how much creativity versus how much straight facts. And look, I think this is a solvable problem. I think we've already seen really big advancements in getting correct citations. We know it's possible because I think I haven't seen a study against Perplexity, so I don't want to say that I know for sure or whatever. But when I go to validate and trust but verify in Perplexity, it's fairly rare that it's incorrect. Usually the citation right. So do we know this is possible? Yes, because we can see an actual product doing this. We can see software doing this through whatever their methodology is for Perplexity. So will ChatGPT get this figured out? Will they fix it? Will their citations become more accurate and valid and whatever? And they'll have to be like less human in the loop. I mean, yeah, in 2025 for sure, but just we can't take our investigator hats off really anytime soon. And I think that's the big takeaway from me is like, this is just a good reminder, despite whether the bias was in the search or not from Columbia. It's just a good reminder that don't get lazy, don't get soft. You have to go dig this stuff up. And it's still a lot faster than if you had to do it from dead zero. So nobody should be complaining about the fact that they have to go search 2 or 3 more links, because the reality is it's still probably on orders of 50% faster than the old way of doing it. So it doesn't bother me, but it's just, it's something to bring up, I guess.
Definitely. Okay, so for everyone who's stuck around so far, Brian's got a great 11 Labs story and demo to cover, and we're going to cover that in just a few minutes. But I wanted to get to a couple of really quick AI in science for good stories before we wrap around that, and then give everybody else a chance before we wrap on that story. So first of all, Queensland University of Technology has come up with a way to, or has gained inspiration for a navigation system for robots inspired by brain functions of insects and animals for more energy efficient navigation. So animal brains use something called spike neural networks. And so they're using that as a basis to create a highly energy efficient method of navigation for embodied AI, aka robots. Another is Cornell University. They've been in the news about inventing a few robotics and AI stories lately. They've created the smallest walking robot at the micro scale. So we're talking about a robot that knows how to move using magnets as their walker. They can swim through fluids, and they can determine distance and depth and all those kinds of things by understanding shapes of light and able to modify that light to be able to navigate. So in the world of the nanobot, this is definitely a push forward. And then
Now, before you go past that one, Jyunmi, the thing that always troubles me about that is, what is the power source for a nanobot? How does it continue to operate? Is it collecting energy from its environment, or like I'm hoping for that day when you can, transfuse all of your, get rid of all your blood, transfuse a bunch of nanobots that are self-motivating and can carry hemoglobin, at a more efficient way, and just forget about having a heart problem because your nanobots are going to swim around in there and just feed all your tissues. But how do they get powered? Did they
So yeah, so there's a couple of approaches that I've seen lately. One, they've talked about there being essentially solar cell. Um, how they get powered through the sun. I think this one was particularly something to deal with eye refraction and after image and stuff like that. We can check that story. But they said that was solar cell. Others have a time limit, right? Other microbots and nanobots have a time limit, and it's usually some sort of chemical reaction type of chemical battery kind of a system. Some are being designed with bacteria powered, so they can use the natural process of bacteria to create power from that process. Others are dynamic motion. So, how there are watches. This has been around for a while, but a simple example is how watches, when you're just walking around, that causes power to be recharging and things like that. So that's another one. But primarily, any free moving nanobot or microbot for your body is primarily a set time limit. It's supposed to do its job within the next amount of time, then it simply gets flushed through the system. Though, yes, Andy, I'd love to have a weekly process.
my self-motivating blood has to be changed every so often? I have to go to a dialysis center. Okay,
Right,
got it.
right. So those are the main powering methods that I've seen in these stories so far. I'm sure they will apparently get better. I'm just waiting for them to be able to get to the sci-fi level where they're just taking the elements that naturally occur in your body and just convert them into the power or building blocks that they need to perform their function. And so we're still a little ways from that, but we're getting there. We're getting there. And then finally, there isn't much information that I could glean from this story, more about that they're trying this out. But the Flinders University wants to know how insects would navigate, how they would function in virtual worlds. So, so they're putting insects into virtual reality gaming. So what we can draw from this is we'd be able to create more situations. It's all that whole simulation sort of thing, more controlled environment and things like that. But I don't know. They might discover new applications and other things like that to see what a virtual reality or simulation could provide. First insects, and I'm sure then larger animals, and maybe even insight into what it'll actually provide for us. But those were the three really quick ones that I wanted to get in. Beth, Andy, do you have any other stories that you really want to cover before I hand it over to Brian for his demo?
I have some stories, but I'm going to wait till Friday because it's a little longer. We don't really have enough time here to do this. So go ahead, Brian. I'll cover it on Friday.
Gotcha. All right. Take it away, Brian.
Yeah, as I was thinking about sharing my screen here, one concern is that the demo that I was going to show is using the mic. So we will find out very quickly here whether I can both ask and use the mic while also using the mic on the show. So if we can't, I will just talk through it, which is fine. But I'll show you here in a second. I wanted to bring up this first. Okay, so what are we talking about? We're talking about 11 Labs just came out with their conversational AI platform. And I wanted to bring this up first because basically you're saying conversational AI connects are lifelike text-to-speech, speech-to-text, and an LLM of your choice, with our custom turn taking and interruption logic that makes conversational feel natural.
Do you want me to share it on the screen?
You're not?
No.
Okay, I'm excited you're sharing it.
Okay. There we go. Keep going.
Yes. Thanks, Beth. So I want to pause there. I was just right here on here, but I want to pause there because just think the advanced voice mode on your ChatGPT mobile app. That's basically what they're saying in so many words here. But it says this leaves you to focus on building your knowledge base, crafting your system prompt, connecting your apps with function calling, selecting your favorite voice from our library or cloning your own, and finding ways to use conversational AI to delight your customers with unbelievable experiences. So I thought, well, it says get started for free, and I do love 11 Labs, and they do this with almost all their products, where you can almost immediately go in and use it without it costing you any money, because they want to get fingers in there and hands in there and stuff. So let me make sure we're switching over. So now we're in the platform, the conversational AI platform. You can see over here on the left, conversational, and I'm underneath the subset of agents. And I created a really quick prompt tutor off of an idea that Andy has been working on internally, not the same total idea, but I was like, oh, I wonder if I can create a prompt tutor based off of a taxonomy of concepts. And what would that in fact be like if I could create it pretty quickly. So you can see here that there's a system prompt that I'm not going to get into too deeply with it. We're just going to get and see if we can test the agent. You can see here that I've selected the Archer voice. You can also see that, let's see, where does it show? In here somewhere, it shows you what model I'm using, but I don't see it on here. System prompt. Here it is. I'm using Claude 3.5, although you'll actually see in here that they say Gemini 1.5 Flash is the fastest. I tried both. Actually think I like Claude 3.5 better. I could also set my temperature. It's currently set to 0.5. ChatGPT would probably be around a 0.7, or at least it used to be. And this is interesting because we're pulling it out from a knowledge base, which I had to upload as a PDF, and I did not think was going to work, but it did. So I'm really excited about that. But let's just kind of jump ahead here and see if we can actually talk to it, me using my mic on both. So let's figure this out real quick. Yeah, I'm wanting to learn a little bit more about token limit. I was wondering if you could help me understand that concept. Okay. Okay. It's not letting me interrupt. Normally I can interrupt. Not at the moment. We can finish. Okay. So I'm gonna back out of that, and I can stop sharing here. Stop sharing, stop sharing. Because well, frankly, for creating that in less than 10 minutes, I'm really impressed. I'm really impressed. Now, normally I have no problem interrupting it. There are also on the back end, there are plenty of different sliders and functionality for how long I want the responses to be. We could hear that those answers are a little long. You'd want it to be a little bit more conversational. And it was like, it's going on. And that's fine. It's telling me about token limits, what I asked. But it probably, if it's a tutor, it really should be like, let me give you a few things. Hey, do you understand that? Does that make sense to you? Like, say it back to me, teach it back to me. Like that's all stuff that could be prompted into it. But what I'm just really impressed with is how quickly you can use any of the 11 Labs voices. how quickly you can put a system prompt in there. You can also do stuff like add in other above and beyond knowledge bases. You can add in tools that get added and attached to it through APIs and things like that, which is really cool. You can limit token usage. Right now, they're not charging you to run this, so I highly recommend anybody going in and playing with it. It's quite literally free. I just signed in with my 11 Labs sign in, but I'm not paying for this. In fact, it even says on there, normally we would charge such and such and such, but right now 11 Labs is covering the cost. So it's definitely something you can go play with. You can also change things like its output format. You could add in different latency, stability. You could add words to the dictionary that it needs to know. You can add in keywords to it that are going to be more relevant for this particular use case. So, I mean, let's just look at this really quick, as well as making it a widget and deploying it on any website immediately without really knowing any coding. I could put this on a website and have it as a helpful agent on a website. We could make one for the Daily AI show, and it could be a helpful agent on topics that we've had or whatever the case may be. We could do one and have every single one of our news shows in there as a knowledge base. And then you could just ask questions about news that we brought up on every Wednesday for the last year plus on it. And that would probably take, other than gathering the information, the actual data, that would probably take a morning to set up correctly, like really well. You'd be testing it probably within 30 minutes, and you'd probably spend the next hour or two just fine tuning and making sure that it's got proper keywords and latency and its answers are the right length and so on and so forth. But, look, you could do this. It's getting easier and easier to create what you guys saw is basically as good as an advanced voice mode on ChatGPT. It's as good, right? But I'm putting it on my knowledge base. Go ahead, Andy.
And does it provide a transcript of the exchange as well?
My question too.
It does. Analysis, data collection. I think I have to add where I want the data collection to go, Andy. Where I want to extract from the conversation transcripts. There's the timeout. I know it's in here because I remember seeing as part of this. Oh, it's right here. It's under conversations. So today, prompt tutor. Yep. Let me just pull this back up on screen really quick and I'll show you what it looks like. Can you put that back on the screen, Beth?
Here you go.
This is where it is. Behind it, you can see the 3 conversations I had today. It's giving me a summary. It's giving me the full transcript. And it's saying there's no client data. This conversation not received any client data. When sent, the client overrides the custom LM body will be shown here. How long the call duration was, what the costs and credits were. But again, I think those are being covered. And it also gives me, like I said, this call status and success on it. And it looks like I can download the entire MP3 from the conversation immediately on there.
And it looks like you can also set this up to be responsive to a telephone number, meaning I can call it. Yeah.
Yes, that is part of it for sure. In fact, that's one of the examples it gives. If we switch back over to this tab, that's what it seems like they're saying it could be helpful for. Obviously chatbots, but obviously I usually think first and foremost like internal use cases. They're a little safer to deploy because you're not going to find that Air Canada gave away a free flight or something like that, because of hallucinations. But just think onboarding, that's the use case I use a lot. And how valuable something like this could be for just simple onboarding for any company, not even sales, which is what I do with Scale.
I think that the facility that represents for implementing an internal corporate co-pilot, as Carl describes it, that's basically got all the information about the business, and you can just have anybody talk to it that wants an immediate answer to a question.
Yeah, and then I'm getting the full transcript. I can download it. So now just think about this, put this in an application like this is even better than what I have for cold call role playing. So you have sales reps that need to practice their ability to do cold call role playing. And we always recommend that they both use the written version because that makes your brain think differently about the answers, as well as having conversations with it. So imagine now I can do the whole cold call role play, but even better, one of the big limitations for that is that your sales leaders don't always have the time to sit down and run those role plays. Well, for a while now, we've been deploying these for our clients and giving them the ability for the reps themselves to iterate and run through many role plays on their own, and then saying, "Hey, sales leader, you can always go back and look at the transcripts and then give them." Well, we built another AI to help them give constructive feedback, but now they can also listen to the call.
Yeah.
They can now listen to how this person's feedback, and I could feed into it and say, in this scenario, hey, voice assistant, you're playing the role of this persona and this job title and this sub industry, and that's
Challenge to you is to do this same thing that took you so little time in 11 Labs, but hook it up to a huddle in Slack. So I can open a huddle with a team member that's an AI in Slack and have the conversation with them.
I mean, I would imagine that's possible. I don't know how it will connect to a huddle. That sounds like above and beyond, but
Well, it doesn't require you to do anything. Slack has the huddle functionality. So
okay.
yeah, you just launch a huddle with it, and now you're in speech to speech with the AI.
Sounds amazing. I would be totally for it. I think this is super cool. I mean, we love 11 Labs. I love 11 Labs and what they're doing. This is obviously directly related to a project that, again, Andy, we don't have to give away much on that. It's something you've been working on for a while, but it's definitely related to that. And the idea of having natural conversations with, normal interactions and interruptions and things like that. And now you're able to deploy these things as fast as you could deploy a custom GPT 9 months ago, which is really, really cool. Really cool. So that's it. Just wanted to share that. That's a cool news story that came out, and there you go.
Brian's like, oh, that's it. Yeah, this is going to be a huge functionality that's going to be added to every single customer service layer of every single website.
I was just saying that in the other newsletter, like I said, expect, because my newsletter is 2 sales reps. I've been writing newsletters much longer there than I have for the Daily AI Show. And one of the things I was saying in there, and when you think about like why does this matter? Why is this important? So, well, number one, in short amount of time in 2025, more customers are going to expect this level of conversational AI with websites, with your products, with your SaaS offerings or whatever. In short, I'm not saying tomorrow, but in 2025, I don't even think it'd be that uncommon for people to start getting frustrated that they're not getting great answers through conversational voice interactions on a website. I think that's how fast you will see this deployed, because 11 Labs is showing that it takes no coding, no extra skills from me. Yes, I needed to know how to prompt a little bit, and I also happen to have a really good knowledge base to start from that we knew we could pull from the taxonomy. That's why I did that, because I knew it existed already. But let's be honest, this is something that can be deployed right away. So if you're in sales, not only can you think about how this can help you internally, you're going to see this on more websites, and more customers are going to expect this type of really good customer service.
And just quick word of caution, because I agree with you that the barrier of how to implement is coming down, right? These things can be really simple to implement. It was half a year ago where there was a car dealership that the person who was using it was near Andy. Person who was using it convinced the bot to give them a price of $1 for a new truck, right? So like, those of you who are like, wow, it used to be hard. Now it's really easy. Learn from the people who did the hard thing, but still had problems, right?
Yeah, it'll still hallucinate.
Also, Brian, when you mentioned about putting on the Daily AI Show, I think we kind of have to now, as part of the end redesign, right?
Yeah.
The other thing is, these are all great use cases for the business side of things. But one thing that struck me is being able to see, hear the playback and the entire conversation. This is a great dictation tool. This is a great way to work on your idea iteration and things like that, because you have your entire conversation. You have both the audio and text translation of it, or transcription of it. You have that summary function. These are all elements that you can use to help develop an idea, work on a project, or just simply, vent if you need to. It's like, oh, was I wrong here? It's like, wow, this is that first step of having that kind of interaction, and it can just be for you, so you don't have to have it all over the place. But yeah.
There's no reason you couldn't use this to learn a language. It'll instantly change languages and talk to you like all over 100 different languages. In their demo, they show that. So I didn't do it because, well, it could start speaking Spanish to me and I wouldn't know what it was saying or whether it was correct. But in the demo, if you watch their YouTube demo, the guy says, "Hey, how can I help you today?" And the person says in Spanish, like, "Well, I speak Spanish. So, yeah, hablo español." And it says, "Oh, see, yeah," but it didn't, no pause, no nothing. Now, I haven't tested that, but just think, like my wife, who's been learning several different languages, she really enjoys it. She could put in a taxonomy of words and conversational situations in French, load that in as a baseline, loading keywords of where her current knowledge base is, and then and have conversations back and forth and say, like, well, if I was in a bakery, a boulangerie, like, how would I go about that in Paris? And then tell me it in English, and then help me talk about it in French.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I definitely want to go in and test it. It sounds like a couple other people in chat definitely want to test it. Yeah, let's get in neck deep into it and see what comes out of it. All right. We're definitely at our time limit, but if anybody's got any quick stories, I'll throw it off to you. Otherwise, thank you everybody for joining us. The news episodes are always some of my favorite because we get to learn a whole bunch of things while we're interacting with you and everybody. And so please join us for Thursday, tomorrow, because we're going to be talking about the new MCP from Anthropic and dive into that a little more. And then, of course, we got Friday's 3-week wrap up and review. And then, of course, always go to thedailyAIshow.com and sign up for the newsletter if you haven't. That keeps on getting better and better with each issue. And I can't wait to see what comes out for this week's issue. All right. I think that'll be wrapping it up. Thank you so much for joining us again. And hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Aloha.